Hello, and come with me on a day of book shopping around one of some of my favourite bookshops and just my general kind of favourite parts of London. It's been a rainy day, but now the sun has suddenly kind of come out. But I thought I'd just take you with me as Ben and I just have one of our kind of general lazy days around London where we just go and buy too many books, which has already started happening. So I'll definitely be ending this video with a book haul. So now we're back home. I thought I'd do a little bit of a book haul to show you what I bought, because I bought some of the books I knew I was kind of going out to get and I wanted to treat myself to today, but quite a few were a surprise, so I'll share them with you. Also, when I say a lot, I mean a lot. For me, this is probably going to be my kind of what my March book haul becomes, because I never normally buy this many books in one go. I tend to go book shopping and buy like one book, if that. So yeah, I'm not allowed to buy any more books for March. I'm actually going to start with a book I bought earlier because I pre-ordered this one, and this is one of my most anticipated history books of the year. There are so many brilliant history books coming out and I've already pre-ordered most of them, but this is one I've been looking forward to for a while, which is Nicola Tallis's Young Elizabeth, Princess, Prisoner, Queen. I really like Nicola Tallis' writing, and I've been privileged enough to go and see her speak a few times, and so as soon as I knew about this book I was obviously going to pre-order it. But I also have to say this is one of my favourite portraits ever to exist, this portrait of Elizabeth, and when I went to see the Holbein exhibition at the Queen's Gallery they had it there and it was just so beautiful. But yeah, obviously it's about the young Elizabeth, and a lot of the books I've read have actually been about Elizabeth's later life, so I'm looking forward to read this one. This book has been on my Tudor TBR for ages because I've never read a book just about Mary I before. I've always read books about Henry VIII's children, and she's been the context to, you know, Lady Jane Grey, books that I've read, or Elizabeth I, but never a book just on Mary. There are two reasons why I wanted to pick up this book now. One, it's Women's History Month at the moment, and so I want to read about women who've been kind of forgotten for history, and Mary I is someone who has just been completely misjudged. I think there is a lot of exciting new research, especially coming from Spanish historians about Mary I, and about how we view her in England is very different to how you know, people in Spain, for example, view her, and really looking at sources and kind of looking at her without the lens of kind of Elizabethan propaganda. You literally have Bloody Mary and Good Queen Bess, and I'm excited to get to know her a little bit better. And Alison Weir also is publishing a fiction book of her coming out in May, and I want to read that. But before I read that novel, I have to read a history book first because I want to know the fact around her. Again, I've read, a lot of it is, the things that I've read have been about other people and Mary's just kind of been there. So I wanted to read a book just on her before I read the novel. The next book I picked up is one I had on pre-order, and it was Judith Flanders' The Rites of Passage, Death and Mourning in Victorian Britain. I really love Judith Flanders' books on the Victorian era, and I think if you are interested in the Victorians at all, she's a really great writer to pick up, especially if you're interested in some of the darker subjects. You know, she has a book about murder, for instance, which I personally loved, but I find Death and Mourning fascinating. You know, I have kind of a morbid curiosity. I like the dark things. I think the Victorian era is a very complex era around those topics. You know, we have great shows of mourning from Queen Victoria, and you know, everything is kind of, we now view it as slightly gothic, and so I'm interested to get to know the history of it and kind of the social reality of mourning for people in this era too. I also want to point out just how stunning this cover is. Then the last history book to show you before we move on to some fiction is The Social Life of Books, Reading Together in the 18th Century Home by Abigail Williams. I picked up this from Judd Books because they have a really great selection of academic books that are like at discounted prices, which I really love reading academic books, but they're often, you know, a lot of money. And so Judd Books are a really kind of good place to go for books like that. This book is really just me pretending I'm back at university. For those who don't know, I studied 18th century studies during my MA, and this book is very relevant to what I studied then and kind of the PhD ideas I have in my brain that I will never actually probably ever use, but I am still the person who goes around collecting essay ideas or thesis ideas, and this is exactly kind of up my street. Abigail Williams provides a fresh and fascinating history of the evolution of reading into a popular social activity, an essential component of domestic life in the mid-18th century. It is perfect, and I think it's so relevant for people who love books about books and the literature of what we do, and I think as someone whose life is dedicated to reading, so much of how we read and so much of our society actually really stems from kind of the sociability that was created in the 18th century, and in my mind the 18th century is the best era, and the era that's often been forgotten about, so I'm looking forward to reading this and just kind of going back into that, the happy place of the 18th century. I then picked up Homecoming by Kate Morton, mainly because Miranda Mills recommended it and it was in one of her favourite books of the year, and I really trust her opinion on books. I feel like we have quite a lot of shared interest, and so she's always someone who I'm like if she likes a book, I'll definitely add it to my wish list. And I also love books set in Australia, and I knew that this would just be the perfect comfy kind of cosy read. I also think my mum would really like it, and sometimes when I get books that I think my mum will like, I'm always like, I'll get it and I'll save it and then she can read it after me. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. And then I've got two books that kind of work together quite well thematically because they're both about the First World War. First we have Jacob's Room by Virginia Woolf. This is one of the beautiful Bloomsbury Library editions, which is a collaboration between Waterstones, Gower Street and Bloomsbury publishers. This is the second edition in their collection, and I bought their first one last year. I think they're doing one a year. Which is Orlando, and they are exclusive to buy at Gower Street. So even if when we move, I'll definitely be coming down to get their new Virginia Woolf edition. If it's Virginia Woolf again, I'm kind of hoping they re-release all of Virginia Woolf's work in these beautiful editions. But Jacob's Room is an interesting one because the first time I read it, I didn't really like it that much, but I think that's because I read it maybe when I was 19. I read it in university when I was preparing for my dissertations. Maybe I was 19 and 20, but to be honest, that is pretty much 10 years ago now, and I've changed so much since then. I've also just read a lot more Virginia Woolf, or I've reread her work so many times since then, but I haven't reread Jacob's Room, so a new edition always gives me the perfect excuse to kind of return to the novel and revisit it now I'm a little bit older. Finally, we have In Memoriam by Alice Winn, which is a book I've been wanting to read and to buy for a while, but I was waiting for the paperback, which is something with fiction I'm trying to do, which is like with Homecoming. I'm trying to be better at waiting, which is not my strong suit. But I think this has been a real big bookseller favourite as well as a booktube favourite, and so many people have loved it. And I think this book might break me, but I really love books set in the kind of the backdrop of the First World War. And yeah, I think it might destroy me, but I'm ready to have my heart broken. 2024 really feels like a good reading year for me, mainly because so many books, especially like anticipated history book releases for me. It's a great year to be a Tudor geek in particular. So there's a lot of kind of books I'm really excited to read, which in general so far has just meant that I've been reading a lot, or for me what I deem to be a lot, which is it's not that much, but I'm really enjoying reading. In terms of what I'm currently reading, as you'll see for the video, I'm reading Catherine of Aragon by Alison Weir. Today Ben and I just really wanted a day where we just went around coffee shops and just read our books and bought some books, which is exactly what we both did. I'm so close to the end of Catherine of Aragon now, and it's like an absolute page turner, and I just want to keep reading. I am now just about to start the next book, which is obviously by Anne Boleyn. This is The Six Tudor Queens, Anne Boleyn, A King's Obsession, and yeah, I'm really excited to read this. I am intrigued though, because Alison Weir has made it very clear, and in fact it's very evident for reading, I think, her biographies especially, which is quite old now, it's quite dated actually, so I wonder if she approached it as a kind of non-fiction book now. I think she might view Anne Boleyn slightly differently. From when I've heard her talk about it in talks, I think her opinion it has changed a little bit, especially on kind of Anne's early years and her kind of exposure to more kind of proto-feminist ideas and kind of religious ideas as well. But because it is very clear that she loves Catherine of Aragon, I'm so intrigued to see how she approaches Anne Boleyn. And even though Anne Boleyn has always been like my the gateway drug into the Tudor era for me, I also love Catherine of Aragon, and I don't really like the whole pitting against them because I feel that they were all badly done by, and I do think Anne Boleyn, people always say, oh, Catherine Aragon had it so bad, and of course she did, but I think we forget that Anne Boleyn was literally killed. Like, she literally had a not fair trial and then was beheaded. Like, I think people forget that. But I am really intrigued, so I'm looking forward to reading this one, and they've just been really great page turners, and I think I said to Ben that some of the foreshadowing in the books is so obvious, and it's like when James Seymour leaves Catherine of Aragon to go and obviously serve Anne Boleyn, there's a whole moment where it's like Catherine's like, oh, well, she'll be where Henry is, and we all know obviously what's going to happen now between Anne Boleyn and James Seymour. But the foreshadowing is so obvious, and sometimes it can feel a bit cheesy, but then when you're an absolute history nerd, you're just there like, it's exciting. And so yeah, they are just really good comfort reads, and I think as if you are like me and you love history, there is a lot of kind of factual stuff in here that just kind of tick that box. But yeah, I think I'm gripped now, so I'm going to start reading that today. I'm aware that was a little bit of a longer answer to what I'm currently reading, but I thought I'd share it with you because I know lots of people who watch my channel also enjoy these books or like have this similar reading taste to me, so I thought it would be useful to talk about. But yeah, that is what I brought on my little day trip. Because I've bought some books, I'm going to actually donate some books I've read, because I've started to have this thing, especially when we've been clearing out our books, that if books come into the house, some books have to leave, so I'm going to do that and drop them off at a local kind of secondhand bookshop. I'm going to go and donate my books, and I thought I would bring you with me because we've probably got an hour before it closes, so I'm going to rush off now and take my little bundle of books to the bookshop that I've featured quite a few times before, so you'll definitely recognise if you watch my videos. So I'll wrap up this section of the video and I'll leave you with a little montage of this beautiful secondhand bookshop and me donating my books. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon in another video. It's me again at the actual end of this video because you've stayed all the way into the end, and for that I am forever grateful. And of course we have to do an emoji. If you don't know, I often ask people for an emoji, just say hi. It takes off the pressure of kind of leaving a really big comment, but it's just a nice way to kind of wave from afar. And if you are still here, I would love you to leave a daffodil emoji or whatever that like yellow flower is. Well, you can't find the like yellow flower, just any flower, because for me this kind of day trip out has really just felt like the beginning of spring, and I'm looking forward to starting a new season. Everything just feels a little bit brighter at the moment, and I hope you feel the same. So I'll see you soon. Bye!